right, good morning everybody. Welcome to In Tune. My name's Leon Harrell. I'm from the OneMinuteMusicLesson.com, and I'm going to be adjusting our sound levels a little bit. If my voice is not loud enough or too loud, let me know in the chat. I've got my final piece of equipment today, and I'm not fully confident on the sound levels. But on today's show, we're going to look at Chopin's Prelude in E minor, which is a beautiful piece, and I'll talk about maybe why I chose that today. And we will also maybe talk a little bit about our group class that's launching on January 17th. And the other topic I want to talk about is improving your tone when you play the piano or other instruments too. But primarily today, we'll talk about the piano. We'll talk about cantabile style, or like the style of singing smoothly. If you are joining us for the first time, say good morning in the comments. Good morning. I see David joining us, and I see Bernadine. Good morning. And we always have folks rolling in throughout the broadcast. We broadcast for about an hour every week, Saturday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, which is the same as Chicago, United States. And the thing I want to ask you to get the show sort of kicked off is, have you practiced tone exercises before? That might apply. Today we'll talk about how it applies to piano, but it applies to all kinds of instruments and singing as well. But let me know in the chat, have you ever practiced tone exercises? And if you're not sure what that means, just let me know. No, I haven't practiced that. But we'll talk about that as we go through. I do see some comments rolling in this morning, so let's just take a quick look to see what we've got before we jump into the show. Let's see. Oh, okay. I just see some comments about our course coming up on January 17th. Good morning, Carol. I see you. Welcome back to the show. And I think my computer might be running a tad bit slow today, so if we get a little out of sync, that'll be okay. We're working on that still. But I'm going to go ahead and dim this music just a little bit. Let's see. Oh, good. David says, my present keyboard doesn't have that sensitivity. Oh, I know what you mean. So what David's referring to here, when I'm talking about tone exercises, so if you're just joining, I asked, have you practiced tone exercises before? If so, let me know in the comments. Every digital keyboard doesn't have the ability to adjust the tone or the sensitivity of the note. So this morning, I'm going to cut off my background music. How do I do that here? Stop. This morning, I've got my keyboard finally patched into my sound bay. So you should be able to hear that. Let me know if you're hearing some piano sound come through as I'm talking there. I don't necessarily see that on my sound meter. So we'll just have to hope and pray that's working. David says not yet. Let's try that. If so, let me know. You should just hear some sort of random piano noise. I got this piece of equipment, this mixer, at the last minute, so we may or may not be able to enjoy that this morning. If so, I can just turn off my exterior sound for that. So let me just do that before we get rolling. All right, so we won't have the joy of that today. We'll just have the external sound, which you should hear now, the same as you hear my voice. It'll just sound a little less clear than I had hoped for. So, tone exercise. What's a tone exercise? So when you're playing the piano, as you probably know, you can produce different volume of sound based on how hard are you pressing the key. So if we press very softly, your piano should respond by making a really soft sound, so you can probably hear that sort of in the background. But if I play more forcefully, you should get a louder sound. All right. So your digital keyboard, hopefully would be able to play the full range of from the quietest sound to the loudest sound, and all in between there. And it's challenging to teach people how to improve their tone if their instrument is not responding to what the physical body is doing. Of course, if you have an acoustic piano or a real piano, quote-unquote real piano, because a digital piano is a real instrument too, it's just not an acoustic instrument. If you have an acoustic piano, it's a lot easier to produce this in most cases if the action or the keys themselves of the piano and the parts they connect to on the inside of the piano, that's called the action. If the action's in good condition, it translates the motion of your finger very smoothly to the hammer that hits the string inside the piano. But depending on the type of instrument you have, the setup you have, it can be more or less challenging to learn the concept of tone depending on your instrument. So I want to talk a little bit about just a simple tone exercise you can do, and we'll talk about that first this morning. So when you're playing your keyboard or your acoustic piano or any other instrument, you want to think about the volume or the dynamics of a piece of music. Volume and dynamics, these words are interchangeable really, but they give music expressive quality. So if music has just all one dynamic or one level of volume all the way throughout, it's very flat. That doesn't mean the notes are different or the rhythms are different, but when you hear the music or experience a performance of this music, it's very flat. It doesn't move us emotionally in any kind of way because there's very little change. There's no dynamic quality to it. So when you are playing, or especially when you're performing for other people or recording videos to perform to be put online, you want to include, changes in dynamics or changes in the quality of the tone. So to do that on the piano, there's hundreds of ways to practice this kind of thing, but I just want to share a simple exercise this morning. So this is just sort of a count up, count down technique. And I'll switch to my keyboard view so you can kind of watch me. There's not a lot to see, but you can see it. So you just pick a note on the keyboard. It doesn't matter what it is. But I'll play middle C, and I'll put a little marker here just to make it simple. If you're new to the keyboard, all right, just find the two black keys right in the middle of your keyboard, and then go off to the left just one note. That's your middle C right there. Okay? But when we're playing a tone exercise, our job or our goal here is to smoothly move from quiet to loud and back to quiet. And what we're practicing here is a couple things. We're practicing how do we get the aural sound, the perception of the sound itself, to do what I just showed you, go from soft to loud, back to soft very smoothly. But the way you physically produce that is you use your hand. You use the muscles in your fingers to do that. So our brain is sending us signals to move our finger. Our finger translates that energy into the physical movement of the key itself. The synthesizer, if you have a digital keyboard, translates that into a sound. That sound comes out of your speaker and back into your ear where you judge, was that louder or softer? So you can see it's a long chain of events that have to happen for you to be able to judge what is happening. So to simplify that, I just use a very simple mental model of just numbers because everybody knows how to count and we've done this our whole life. It's a very simple skill. So what we're going to do is count. If you're a beginner, let's just do 1 to 5. But as you advance in your musical development, you extend the number. So you might go from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20. And you're imagining I'm increasing the volume or the dynamic just a little bit till I get to whatever target number. Sorry, look, I was frozen for a minute. When you're a beginner, it's hard to control those different gradations of sound. So we start with a small number. So let's just do numbers 1 through 5. And this is what the exercise sounds like. So you'll just think in your mind. It's kind of hard to say it out loud while you're doing it because you're actively listening to the sound. But we're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 should be the maximum volume. So when you're playing the keyboard or playing the piano, if you're new to the piano, you're very hyper-focused on what are my fingers doing. But as you progress and you develop playing the piano, you'll soon learn that it's not just your finger you're using. You're actually using the weight of your hand and the weight of your arm, the weight of your upper arm, and the motion in your shoulder to really get that top volume. Because we can't just move our finger really hard to get the top volume. Our fingers aren't strong enough to do that. Okay, but let's just do the exercise slowly. So it's counting 1 to 5. All right, 1 is the softest, 5 is the loudest. All right, so give it a try yourself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. come back down from 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the 1 should be as quiet as you can possibly play. So you'll find if you're new to the keyboard, playing soft is quite difficult because it requires more control of the fingers and the arm, all the parts of the body we use to play the piano. And playing softly also relies pretty heavily on the action of the acoustic piano, the keys and the hammers themselves. And on a digital piano, you could be completely unaware that the digital system can be set up to completely bypass all of that. And if you have a less expensive model of keyboard, and that's not to say all of them are the same because there's such a huge variety of digital instruments, but oftentimes manufacturers that make digital instruments, they will not include that ability into the keyboard. Oftentimes you'll hear that called touch sensitivity. So if you've gotten a keyboard, or you look at the user manual, or you just Google, user manual for whatever you've got, does the keyboard have a touch sensitivity feature? I use a Yamaha P45, P as in piano, and the Yamaha P45 is a really great instrument for professionals and beginners. It's about $400 to $500 US dollars. And I mean, that depends on what you consider to be a budget item or a budget price. But I will tell you, I've played piano my whole life. I've owned lots of digital keyboards. The most expensive keyboard I ever had was probably $2,200. It was considered, a pro grade, like traveling studio instrument, like it's a great instrument. But I had that back in 1990. I was a teenager. I just turned 40 this year. It was a great instrument, very touch responsive, was great. But that technology has improved like light years in the last probably, 5 to 10 years. Just the quality of sound synthesis and even cheap synthesizers have improved a lot. I see a couple comments rolling in. I'll just address those real quick before we go on. So David said, I just discovered that I do have keys sensitivity on the keyboard. Sometimes your keyboard can come with the default setting to where the sensitivity is turned off. So you just have to turn it back on. The Yamaha P45 has 4 different settings. I want to say you can have a soft, a medium, and a hard sensitivity, meaning, if you set it at the soft sensitivity, no matter what you do, it all kind of sounds pretty close to the same. And if you set it at a hard sensitivity, there's a lot more gradations of tone in there. But you can actually turn the sensitivity off completely. So no matter what you do, they all sound identical. And the purpose of that in a digital keyboard is if you want to play sounds that are not piano sounds, like the organ, for instance, you can't control the volume of an organ by the way you press the key. It's done through another means, like using a pedal or whatever. We could go into that. But there's a reason you want to be able to turn it on and off, but not for the purpose of playing piano. Linda also says, you're a little bit out of focus. I will tell you that when we're streaming, a lot of times the video quality can kind of go in and out during the stream, but on the replay, somehow YouTube repairs that. I don't understand that, but often when I look back at the replay, the focus is corrected. But thank you for letting me know, Linda. Okay, so just going back to our exercise, you start on 1 and you work your way up to whatever number is kind of your target number. But 1 is always the softest sound, and the top number, your target number, is always the loudest sound. If you're brand new to piano, stick to 1 to 5. If you've been playing for a while and you understand this concept and you want to sort of really dig into practicing it a little more, do 1 to 10. Once you feel like you're at an intermediate or above level, you can do higher numbers. But the higher the number, the more there's diminishing returns at some point. Okay, so 1 to 10 is pretty sufficient for most purposes of practicing tone. Okay, so that's the exercise. That's a tone exercise. Let me know in the comments, have you done that before? If this is brand new to you, just let me know in the comments, hey, that's new to me. You know, interesting idea. Whatever your thoughts are, share your thoughts there. So we're going to jump into our piece, Prelude in E minor. This is by Frédéric Chopin, Polish composer from, oh, I'm always so bad with my dates for historical composers, but let's just say he's from the early, I want to say 1900s. Look it up on Wikipedia. You'll find it. I'm always terrible at remembering that off the top of my head. But I will tell you, this piece is very famous and it's very beautiful and it has a very haunting quality to it. It sort of evokes a feeling of sadness or despair. I mean, you could describe that in a lot of ways, but there's an interesting Wikipedia article about it if you want to read a little bit more. But, you know, not to get too far into it, but, you know, I think we've all followed the news of what's happened, especially in America this week. And, you know, it's very difficult to put on a show where I always try to be happy and share some joyous piece of music with you when maybe we just don't always feel that way. It's important to embrace how we feel. So I picked a piece, you know, that sort of was reflective of how I felt today. So I also picked this because I always like to pick a tune that, you know, it's pretty easy for a beginner to either play the song or a piece or, you know, play some portion of it. Oftentimes the right hand is easier in a lot of pieces than the left hand, or, you know, you can separate the two to get to be able to play the song or, you know, perform with the song somehow. Every week on the show, we use a piece of software called Piano Marvel, and I'm just going to throw a link up on the screen. If you do want to follow along throughout the week as you do your own practice, you can go to oneminutemusiclesson.com/toolbox. There you'll see a link to download Piano Marvel. You'll get it free for 30 days, and if you decide to continue, it's a monthly subscription service. Be sure to use our affiliate link. You'll find it at that link on the screen here because you'll get a 20% discount if you decide to continue on with your subscription. But this piece from Chopin is in the Piano Marvel Music Library. And what I want to look at today is just the right hand, because the right hand is very simplified. It's almost always just one note at a time. And it's a great piece for practicing tone exercises like that, or being very focused on your tone. Because if you're only playing the right hand, which is what we'll look at this morning, it's really much easier to focus on the loudness and the softness, or the slight changes in the dynamics as we play. So I'm going to set our software up in the practice mode here. I'm going to choose the chopped mode at the top, so we could either do the whole piece or the chop mode. We're just going to start with the first 8 measures for the right hand only. And the tempo choices are 40, 50, and 60. This particular piece can be played at a really, really slow tempo when you're even professionals that perform the piece in concert. The piece is slow. So it's a great one for beginners because you don't have to feel like, oh, I've got to work this up to some incredible tempo that, you know, I don't feel like I can do yet. That's why I love this piece, especially for newer pianists. So we're going to do this sight reading at, we'll take it at 40. All right, we'll just do the first 8 measures. And last week on our show, we talked about reading, intervallic reading. So if you missed last week, just check out our YouTube channel. You'll see last week's show up there. And we talked about, you know, rather than reading note to note, we can read the distance between notes, the intervals. This is a good piece for that, but you'll notice the piece has a lot of very small motion from note to note. So you might only move up one key or down key on one key on the keyboard. And that's because Chopin's sort of the compositional focus of this piece is not a lot of flashiness in the melody and not a lot of movement in the melody, because what he's doing compositionally, sort of behind the scenes, that you may not realize it when you listen the first time, but the harmonies are moving very chromatically. So meaning all the notes in the chords in the left hand, they're not adhering very strictly to a particular key. So this piece is in E minor. Key signature reflects that. It's 1 sharp. When we have 1 sharp, it could be G major, it could be E minor. We look for context clues to figure that out. But in this particular case, the composer's just named it E minor, so we just know that from the name of the piece. But as you learn more about harmony and you start to explore different things about music theory, you'll find that this piece does not really fit very nicely in the key of E minor, because Chopin is exploiting what's called chromaticism, or really pushing the boundaries of standard tonal music in the key of E minor to explore harmonies that are not common to the key. Okay, but we'll allow the software, the accompaniment in Piano Marvel, to sort of play those left-hand harmonies for us. I find that makes this piece really interesting for beginners, because they are getting to play, something that's maybe right hand only for our purpose today, but the harmony is very interesting. And you'll find, when we talk about how does music make us feel, or how does music reflect our feelings, that's always subjective. There is no right or wrong answer to those things. But many people will find that this piece evokes an emotion, a very effective piece that evokes emotion. Okay, so with all that said, let's look at the piece. We're going to put our song in prepare mode. Piano Marvel has 2 modes. We've got prepare mode, which lets you be the driver of the software, and assess mode, which lets the software be the driver. I'm going to do it in prepare mode. And you should see on your screen here in front of you, I've got a little camera where you can see my piano down below. Hopefully that doesn't block anything that we need to see in the piece, but I think it's just going to block a little of the left hand, which we're not working on this morning. Okay, so starting with your thumb, just on the B right below middle C, and I'll bring this down where you can see it. So this little red pointer is pointing at middle C. All right, and then my thumb's just below that. So get your hand in position there, your thumb there, and get your pinky an octave above, okay? So this piece is going to really exploit a lot of what we talk about every week, is like conservation of motion or conservation of visual information when we're sight reading, because the piece is composed to really exploit that, actually. It's a piece where there's very little motion, but the harmony that these small motions create is very interesting. Okay, but let's go through the piece one time. We'll just do the note names. This is a good one to practice. If you're new to reading notes, there's not a lot of notes to be read here, so it's a good one for practice. So we'll start on the B, just below middle C, and then the next note is the B, an octave above that. Now, as we move forward, a lot of what we're doing is only moving up by, one white key on the piano, or down one black key. There's very little motion in the piece, okay? So the next note is going to be a repeat of B, all right? And we're going to hit that just with our middle finger, okay? We'll go up a note to C, down a note to B, up a note to C, down a note to B. All right, back up to C, back down to B. All right, now we're crawling down a half step to B flat. All right, another half step down to A. All right, up a step to B, down a step to A, up a step to B, down a step to A, up a step to B, down a step to A, a repeat on the A. All right, and then we'll stop there. So you can see, just reading the notes, disregarding the rhythm completely, there's so little motion in the melody. So how do you, as a piano or a keyboard player, make that interesting? You make it interesting by paying attention to the tone quality that you're producing. We've got a couple comments rolling in, so I'm just going to say a quick hello to a couple folks. Hey, good morning, Sandy. And let's see, Bernadine has a question or maybe a comment. Let's just see what your comment is. I have a classic sound and a modern on the keyboard. I never understood that setting. Does it have anything to do with the tone 1 to 5 type of music? Bernadine, that is a good question. If you'll let me know the model of the keyboard you have. There's so many types of keyboards. I may be able to tell you the answer to that, but a lot of times digital keyboards will often come with a stage piano or like a grand piano sound, which is probably your classic sound. And then the modern sound tends to be brighter or more brilliant in quality, which tends to be a piano like you might use in playing jazz or pop music in a studio, because these tunes don't necessarily need all the acoustic range of the piano. Like classical music will use a lot of the low range and the high range, so you want all the keys of the piano to really sparkle acoustically for whatever quality they have. Whereas a quote unquote modern, I mean, who knows what that really means on your keyboard, but things that are produced in a musical studio tend to be altered so heavily, it really doesn't matter so much what the piano sounds like, because they're going to edit the heck out of it anyway in post-production. That would be my best guess, but you'll probably find that for this particular type of music, the classic sound probably fits what we're looking for. Let's see. Oh, and David makes a mention about the focus. On the light on my keyboard this morning is probably a little harsh. If you'll hold just a moment, I'll shut my blinds here, and that might help a little bit. So we definitely make this show happen on a budget every week. We don't have a proper professional lighting set up, and in these winter months, sometimes the sun just hits at a weird angle. So we'll see if that's a little better. Hopefully that's a little bit softer, a little bit gives us some more focus on the keyboard. Okay, let's go back through our tune again. All right, we're going to do it this time in rhythm. All right, and oh, I see your comment. It's a problem with reading the score, not your keyboard. For this morning, we'll have to just make do, but I'll definitely look into that for our episode next week to see what's going on with that. We're going to look back at our tune, and I'm going to count this in rhythm. We'll do it using our rhythmic counting we use every time. And just for clarity, let's see. We'll just take a sneak peek at the rhythms we're going to encounter. So when we start the piece, we're starting on beat 4. This piece is in 4/4 time, which just means that the top number tells us the number of beats that there are. The bottom number tells us what type of note is equal to a beat. So the top number 4 says there's 4 beats in a measure. The bottom number 4 tells us that the quarter note gets the beat. So if you think of the bottom number always as a number, like a fraction, so like 1 over that number, which is 4, so 1 over 4, that fraction is 1/4, or a quarter of the whole itself. So it's telling us there's 4 quarter notes in a measure. And of course, if you've watched our show for a while, you know that doesn't apply the same way when we talk about compound meters. So if I'm already starting to lose you, what are you talking about? This is getting crazy. I do have a book, How to Read Music Easily in 30 Days. I go through all the different things we talk about on this show every week in great detail, so that if you're ready to jump right into reading at a more advanced level, that book will help you out in that. But it is designed for total beginners, so you won't be overwhelmed. Okay, so we're going to start this piece counting on beat 4, all right? And the syllables we'll use are 4 and the letter, the syllable ah. So 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, etc. So we're counting this dotted 16th note as 1, E, and. All that's together, so we're just saying 4 E, and then the last 16th note is ah, because when we divide a quarter note in half, that's 2 eighth notes, so we would count 1 and, or 2 and, 4 and, however we're dividing that beat. But when we divide to the subdivision level, meaning the second level of division, the 16th notes, we'll count 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and etc. So this is on beat 4, so it starts on the number 4, and only that last 16th note is present, so ah. So 4, 1. All All right. The rest of it is very simple counting, just this whole beat, so it's much easier than that opening bit. But we will see that opening bit come back here for a 1 again at measure 8. All right, and then the rhythms can continue to get more complicated as we go. They're not overly challenging, but I'll just give you a heads up. The most challenging part of the piece is measure 17 through 19, but pending time today, we may get that far. Okay, so let's start it again from the top. All right, thumb on B, all right, and your pinky on the B an octave above. And when we play that second B, when we repeat that, you're going to lift your hand right off the keyboard and use finger 3, your middle finger, to play that repeated B at the top. Okay? All right, Bernadine, I see your comment, Casio Privia. I don't know a lot about that model, but again, I think I pretty much stand by what I recommended. Probably the classic sound is what I'm guessing, but thank you for letting me know that model. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll stop there at measure 9. So we've gone through and we've counted it. It's not a terribly difficult rhythm, but now we want to think about the tone quality. So when you play the keyboard or an acoustic piano, the way a piano works is that a real piano works is inside the piano there's a string. There's at least there's 88 keys on a piano. Inside the piano, each note, each key is hitting 3 different strings, all right, depending on where you're at on the piano. When you play the bass notes, there's only 1 string because the string's much thicker. So there's like 200 some strings on the inside. But when you play it, all you're doing, when you press the key moves a little piston inside that takes a hammer made out of felt, and that felt hammer strikes the string vibrates, and then the flat piece of wood on the back of your piano that you never look at and it's always dusty and kids have written on it with crayon, if it's an upright piano, that's called the soundboard. And the soundboard vibrates from the strings vibration. It amplifies the vibration, and that's how you're able to hear it. So a digital piano is trying to imitate all those different things. But what's important to know, regardless if it's a digital or acoustic piano, when the hammer strikes the note, that's the only time you can affect the sound. You can't change the sound after the hammer's been stricken. So the only way we can control tone on the piano is from note to note to note. It's not like a violin or the voice. When a violinist plays and bows across a string, the harder they press down on the string or the faster they move their bow back and forth, they can make the tone change without playing a brand new note. Or when you sing, you can go, ah, you can get louder as you sing, but you can't do that on piano, so you have to imitate it on the piano. So that's why we do these tone exercises where we're imagining, sort of connecting the dots between notes, because technically when the hammer strikes, the sound, hits at whatever volume the hammer hit the string, but it begins to decay or die away immediately. The only thing you can do on a piano to make it last a little bit longer is to hold the sustain pedal, the pedal at the bottom of your piano. If you've got 3 pedals, it's always the one that's the furthest to the right. If you have a digital piano and you have just 1 pedal, most likely it's a sustain pedal where you hold it down and the note rings out. On an acoustic piano, your sustain pedal will take the hammers off all the strings, and when you hit 1 string, that string, let's say it's middle C, for example, whatever that note is, it actually makes other strings in the piano vibrate a little bit. That's called sympathetic vibration. And you get a different quality of tone on a real piano or acoustic piano because of that. A digital piano, it can emulate that if you have a really advanced keyboard, and some of them do that. But less expensive instruments don't bother with all those details. And that's, yeah, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but you know, there's a lot to know about music if you're interested. Where I'm going with that is tone exercises. When we play this piece here, we're going to imagine we're singing the note so that we can listen to what we're doing and try to match it when we hit the next note. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate that for you. So we go back to the beginning. Okay, we're going to play it like so. And when we're playing the right hand only, this is not immediately obvious because like I just said, when you hit the note, the volume dies away and there's nothing you can do. All you can do is play the next note and try to either match that volume or change, increase the volume. You can't do anything with the note you're holding. All right? Surprise, Chopin is using the left hand to make up for that limitation on the piano. So we're not playing the left hand, so you can't experience it right now. But let's just do the right hand. Okay? And as we're doing it, sing along this time. So just go, we'll just say ta, 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 ta. Ta, 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 ta. We'll stop there at measure 9. So with my voice, I can actually produce what the notes are telling us to do. Hold the tone out, and you'll see that slur line across the whole phrase here, that long arcing line that it's telling us connect all the notes together, don't break them, don't have a breath in there. As a singer, if you're singing along, you have to breathe at some point. You can't sing indefinitely. But if you're playing a violin, you could play it without really any kind of break in sound at all. If you're playing a wind instrument like a clarinet or a trombone or a trumpet or whatever, well, you do have to breathe because your breath is making the sound. But like I said, Chopin, the left hand is going to help mask all that. So because we're focusing on the right hand, we're sort of skipping over a piece of the information there. Okay? So we'll do this one more time. I'm going to play the left hand, but you just play the right hand. Okay, I'm going to put it back in prepare mode so the software will just move along for me so I don't have to scroll with my hand. All right. Oh, actually, if I do that, it's going to mess up because it's thinking my left hand's playing something. So I'll just play it like so. Okay, we'll just do measures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's first 7 measures, the ones you see here on screen. Okay, we'll count to 4. I'll play the left hand along with us. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. Scroll up. We'll do those last 2 measures too. Starts on an A. Here we go. And 3. and it continues on past there. So you can tell from the sound of the harmonies, it's a beautiful piece, but the left hand's getting all the action. The right hand is deceptively simple. So we've counted through that, we've played through that, we've talked about the tone. Let's go ahead and look at sort of the next couple measures here. We're going to take our practice mode. We're going to switch it over to measures 8 through 16. Okay, so continuing on where we're at, we're going to look at sort of the challenging spots before we play them. So the rhythms are relatively simple. We've just got quarter notes, dotted quarter notes, some eighth notes. But you will find a triplet here in measure 13. And you'll know it's a triplet because you'll see this number 3, all right, on the opposite side of the beam. So if you don't know your parts of the note yet, you've got the note head, the stem, the beam that connects them together, and then on the other side of the beam, that could be below it or above it, depending on how the music's published. But the 3 on the other side of the beam tells us this is a triplet. All right, so we're going to count that. This is on beat 4, 4, la, li. The rest of the music, we're going to count 1 and 2 and 3, and the beat itself is only being divided one time at most, so just use the syllable and. But where the beat is divided into 3 equal parts, we'll use the syllables, whatever the number is, 4 in that example, beat 4, 4, la, li. So if I'm counting this whole measure here, which is going to be the more difficult one to count, it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, la, li. All right, so that'll help us count our triplet. All right, and that's probably as far as we're going to make it today to measure 13. So let's do that one together. All right, we're going to do this in prepare mode. We're starting on beat 4 in measure 9. It starts on a G sharp, right, which is just a few keys above middle C. Again, I'll mark that with the little red marker, just so you can have an anchor point to think about. All right, C, G sharp. Every other note in this passage is a white key. The only exception, of course, is our F sharp from our key signature. So I'm going to mark that on my keyboard with another anchor point. All right, so all of our Fs are F sharps. And just for ease of practice and sight reading, we're going to give ourselves a little marker on the keyboard so that we know, let's not hit that key. So a lot of times I'll use dice or coins or different objects for different learning purposes. All right, so for today, we're going to take our green dice. We're going to put that on the F key, the white key there, because we know we are not going to play that key. So think of this as sort of like our little landmine. We're not going to step on that one. Okay, so we're starting on G sharp. All right, starting on beat 4. And we'll count this one time before we use the software. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, la, li, 1. It repeats the B on the next measure there, okay? All right, so that was kind of quick. We'll do it one more time because if you're brand new to the piano, that probably is way too fast. You can always watch the show on replay and on YouTube, sort of down here in the, the right-hand corner. You can change the playback speed. You can set it to playback much slower, okay? But what my aim for you to do is to be able to count it very confidently, knowing that you're counting it correctly, but playing it at whatever tempo or speed you're comfortable doing. Okay, so let's do that slower. All right, we'll count one empty measure, and then we'll start on beat 4 of that second measure. All right, and we want to think about what's the fastest part of the passage. Well, the fastest part is the triplet. 4, la, li, 1. So that's how we determine what tempo will we play the whole thing, what tempo will we sight read the whole thing, because the fastest part's the hardest part usually. All right, and then the other thing to think about is, what is there a part where the notes jump around a lot, or like there's a big leap in the notes? If you look here on this second measure, there is a bit of a leap between the C and the E here, so that might inform how fast you sight read it or practice it as well. Okay, I'm just going to take it much slower so you can follow along. So here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, lolly, 1. Just the next note is the B. It repeats there. All right, so we'll stop there at measure 14. Okay, let's do that again. All right, so if you're new to the keyboard, you're battling a couple things. You're trying to play the correct notes or the correct pitches, so the right keys on the piano, but you're also trying to count the rhythm correctly. So you've got two things happening. You've got pitch and you've got time. So the pitch in music is shown with the notes, you know, where are they located up and down on the staff, so the vertical axis. The horizontal axis, moving left to right, this is where the rhythm lives in the sheet music. So as we move left to right, we're counting the rhythms themselves. Okay, and I talk about all that in my book, but the focus I'd like you to do, if you're really brand new to the music, focus on reading what the notes are, what the pitches are. So we start on G sharp, all right, and I'm just going to go through them relatively slowly without any kind of rhythm here. So G sharp, all right, the G sharp repeats. It's tied over, meaning we don't play it. We're just keeping the rhythm, so we keep our finger held down. All right, moving along, we've got A, B, D, C, E, A, F sharp. All right, then we're playing A, F sharp, and to finish the passage, B, A, G, F sharp, C, B, D sharp, F sharp, D natural, C, B, and then we'll repeat the B in that next measure where we're stopping there. Okay, so let's do it one more time and decide what do you need to work on today? Is it reading the notes? Is it counting the rhythm? Are you ready to practice like paying very close attention to the tone quality? That's up to you. But if you watch this on the replay, you can practice all the different layers or elements that we're talking about. Okay, we'll do it one last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3. 4, 1, 2, 3. 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, lolly, 1. And we'll stop there. Okay, so let's listen to this passage with the left hand just so you can hear, you know, what happens when you add the harmony. It suddenly becomes a lot more interesting. Okay, so we'll do that in, I'll just do it manually because we've got a lot cooking this morning. Okay, so here we go. Last time, all right, if you're trying to follow along on the left hand, we've got D, F sharp, sorry, F natural, and B. Okay. Very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, Okay, so we'll stop there for today. This piece can be tackled bit by anyone. It might be challenging for a beginner to play the left-hand part. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, Chopin's main focus in this composition is really exploiting the idea of chromaticism and moving things with very small motions, but the harmony itself is changing pretty drastically. Because you'll find that if you understand music theory or you're interested in learning more about music theory, the harmonies, the chords themselves, don't really fit in the key of E minor very smoothly as we analyze it. Okay, let's wrap up the show just by listening to the whole piece one time. I'll probably play along a little bit as we go, but we'll do it in assess mode so you can hear the whole thing. We'll do it in practice mode as whole. We'll do it at 50 beats a minute. All right, in assessment mode. Oh, and I'm not hearing any sound. What's going on? Well, I'm getting a glitch, and I don't want to run out of time today. So maybe we'll wrap that up. I might post a video this week playing this one. So give it a try. Do it in prepare mode. Try it in assess mode so you can take a listen to that. If you have questions on what we've covered today, throw it in the comments. If you liked some of the topics we talked about, so today, a lot of times we'll do things that are much simpler. We'll talk about, a little bit more basic things about counting notes and rhythms. But, like I said, it just was kind of one of those weeks where I couldn't really bring myself to just do something that was joyous because that's just not how I'm feeling today. So if you like the show, let me know or give a thumbs up. That always helps with the sort of YouTube algorithm of it all. And I will let you know that if you're interested, I'm launching a new Zoom piano group course. You can read all about that at my website, 1minutemusiclesson.com. You'll just see a thing there on the home page just alerting you, oh, read here about the group lesson. The group is only going to be open to 30 people because it's our first time launching a group class. I've certainly taught group classes many times in my life, but I haven't done one on Zoom and the Zoom product before. The last thing I ever did that was like that was on Google Hangouts, and that was years ago. And Google Hangouts just doesn't work that well for group teaching. So we're super excited about that. If you want to learn more, visit 1minutemusiclesson.com. And if you are interested, you don't have to make a commitment. There's a survey to fill out to let me know what kind of thing might you be looking for, because the course will be tailored to the people that sign up for it. Okay, that's going to be it for today's show. I do like to always say thank you for those watching. And I don't know, we're getting some weird stuff on my setup today, so I don't even know if you can hear my music played out. But I would like to say a special thank you to our patrons. You are really helping us achieve our mission to teach music literacy to the world. If you want to learn more about how you could support the show, whether that be financially or just through spreading awareness of our YouTube channel, visit 1minutemusiclesson.com/support. You can learn all about that. Stay tuned to our newsletter. I'll be sending out some announcements probably later today or tomorrow. We'll be opening the registration for our group course. So that will open later today or maybe first thing tomorrow. But I'll email the newsletter before we once that goes live. Thank you all so much for joining every week. Saturday, 10 a.m. Chicago time or Central Standard Time. We have people join us from all over the world. I love to see where you're from and where you're joining from. And I look forward to seeing you next week on our episode of In Tune. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great one. Take care.